All right, next up we have a team from Virginia, Joe, Paul, and Jeff Vestigo.
Okay, so I want you to imagine for a minute that you live in central New Jersey, but you work in Manhattan and New York on the stock exchange. Every day, Monday through Friday, you have to be on Wall Street before the bell tolls to start trading. So you get up in the morning, everything's going great. You're headed to the Princeton Junction train station to hop on the train. You're running a little bit behind, but not too bad. When you get to that train station, it turns out that it's actually very busy that day. There are over 9 lots and over 4,000 parking spaces. And you're having a really hard time finding a place to park. So you end up giving up because it's just taking too long and you want to make it to work on time. So you end up hopping on the New Jersey Parkway and just driving all the way to the city, dealing with rush hour traffic. And when you get to the city, you have to then troll around several different blocks, clogging up traffic, trying to find a parking spot there. You end up just paying to park in a parking deck. It's very expensive. You're late to work. It's not even 9 a.m. yet, and you've already had a miserable day. So in entrepreneurship, opportunity and problem are synonymous. So the problem is with major cities, getting from the suburbs to the city every day, cars are the worst, pretty much the worst way to do that efficiently. So cars use a huge amount of fossil fuels. They're very large. For one person, a car takes up a lot of space in the city. Real estate is a premium, and real estate that's used for parking in high-density areas is actually very wasteful. So a parking deck makes a lot less money than a restaurant and apartment building. So it's a waste on tax revenue, and it causes all sorts of things. Driving is also dangerous. There are a lot of accidents, and it takes longer. So the best way to move people in and out of cities are by trains and other forms of mass transit. So the issue is you want to be able to have people park at the park and rides efficiently. There are other markets where parking is an issue, specifically universities. A study by the University of Colorado said that 70% of all universities have issues with traffic circulation and with parking in particular. And this is often caused because students grew up in the suburbs. They're used to just driving everywhere, even though universities often have great public transportation, public bus systems. They tend to want to drive. So they want to drive, and it causes huge amounts of congestion because parking's expensive, and universities don't want to increase their infrastructure. Now, airports kind of have a unique issue with parking. Basically, there's usually plenty. The issue is they have to close parking lots when they reach about a 75% occupancy rate, and that's because if you exceed that occupancy rate, it takes very long for people to find a spot. So the issue is airports have to open up many more parking lots than they actually need to service those people, and so they have to light all those parking lots, they have to provide security, and they have to provide shuttle services to get you to the airport itself. So our solution to this problem is to bring real-time data tracking. So imagine if you knew where all those open parking spots are at any given time. And the way we do this is very simple. So we have a laser rangefinder. It's a very simple device. You point it at something, and it tells you how far away that object is. So in this case, we're going to mount it on a tall building and point it at a bunch of parking spaces. And to calibrate it, we'll get a reference for how far those spaces are unoccupied. So for example, if this particular spot, let's say call it spot X, is 20 meters away, unoccupied, and then our system knows that, and when it's rotating around, let's say a car pulls up into that spot, the system will then read it's about 18.5 meters away, and so it'll know that the spot is occupied. And it'll then communicate that information to our back-end data center. And so once we have all this data, we can then do some really cool things. So if we go back to the example I gave in the beginning of, let's say you're driving to the Princeton Junction train station, and you get a notification on your phone that says, Princeton Junction is very busy today. There's not a whole lot of parking. Instead, why don't you try Secaucus or try Newark and go there instead of driving all the way to the city. We'll direct you to an available parking spot in Newark or in Secaucus or at another train stop so you can go there and park and still get to the city on time without having to pay exorbitant fees. And I can stand up here and use really big fancy buzzwords like predictive analytics and big data, and that's all very nice, but at the end of the day, for infrastructure costs, what really matters are costs. How much is this gonna cost to implement? And so our system is very affordable. Our data, we call it data collection rig because it includes several rangefinders, some communication equipment, and one rig can cover about 500 parking spaces, so that works out to be about $10 per spot. So we're not the first people to think that real-time parking tracking would be very helpful. A lot of people are in this market. Streetline has been really successful. They're capitalized at over $25 million. They're backed by Citibank. They've partnered with IBM on IBM's Smarter Cities initiative, among other things, and they power Smart Park LA. Fiber powers, they use a very similar technology, and they power SF Park, which uses parking tracking to do variable-based pricing for street-level parking. And how these systems work is you can imagine like a big hockey puck filled with sensors that they drill under each parking spot. And these are very expensive because they include all sorts of sensors, from magnetic sensors to sonar, all sorts of things to be able to communicate and realize that a spot is occupied or unoccupied. But they work incredibly well despite their costs, and you can put them anywhere. You can put them on surface lots, you can put them in garages, you can put them on street parking. They work everywhere. The issue is, as you can see here, they're very expensive. So even though they work everywhere and they're very effective, they cost about $300 a spot and up, versus our system, even though we only work at surface lots, it's $10 per spot. So let's look at that cost savings at a larger scale. So let's go back to the original example of Princeton Junction. If Princeton Junction wanted to install parking sensing technology on all 4,000 of their parking spots strewn across 9 lots, if they use Streetline, the #1 person in the industry, it would be over $1.2 million. With us, it would cost less than $50,000. Now I could say you save 97%, it costs $1.22 million less money, but that's not really what this is about. It's about viability. So at a cost of over $1 million, this is not a viable solution for them. They're just not going to implement this system. But at less than $50,000, it's really a no-brainer, especially when you scale that to the entire New Jersey transit system to get the full effects of the system. So why are we going after these 3 particular markets of airports, universities, and park and rides? And that's because it's a commuter situation where you need to be there at a certain time. You don't have time to drive up and down parking lots looking for a spot. They have institutional benefits from promoting the use of public transportation. So all 3 of these, especially universities and park and rides, have a huge incentive to increase ridership on public transportation. That is huge for them. And there are also many of them, so it's a relatively large market. So if you look at the market as a whole in the United States, parking employs over 1 million people and is worth about $30 billion annually in the paid parking market. Our particular niche that we're going after is worth about $6 billion annually in revenue. So our business strategy to crack into this market, the surface lot parking market, is the first test at Virginia Tech. We have connections there. We can get access to the tops of buildings and to light poles and all these things. And then what we really want to do is license or partner with one of these other technology companies so that we can come to our customers and provide them a one-stop shop solution so they don't have to go with us for their surface lots and someone else for their parking decks. We just want to be able to license or partner with them so we can come to the university and say, if you hire us, we'll solve all your parking needs.
By the end of 2015, we want to be in Virginia Tech and at least one other university. By the end of 2019, we want to be managing just over 400,000 parking lots. That'll come to around $19 million in revenue. So Joe and I created Acmo Technologies during our sophomore year in college. Now, being computer science majors, we're not really used to the whole startup thing. So we entered the Knowledge Works. That was our entry into entrepreneurship. And even though we didn't win, we had a great lesson that carries over to today that we still haven't forgotten. Over the years, we met Paul Fagan, and together, using our unique skills, we've created Vestigo. Unfortunately, Paul isn't able to join us. He's currently taking the CPA exams in Hampton, So we wish him the best of luck with that. He's an accounting alumni from here at Virginia Tech. Joe and I are currently senior computer science majors, and we're trying to concentrate into big data. And thanks to the computer science department at Virginia Tech, we're able to take brand new courses which specialize in this content. Now, the initial prototype will cost $7,000, and launch it at Virginia Tech will cost an additional $25,000. And that money goes into additional units, which will deploy across the campus and the parking lots everywhere, which will be actively cooperating with the backend server and live and updating apps and the website, which we have running at real time online. And the total cost to our initial investment will be around $32,000. So due to our low-cost solution, we're able to tap into a market which our competitors have been unable to touch to this point.
And when we approach these institutions to sell them on our idea, even though we're a parking sensing company, what we're not selling is parking technology. What we are selling is saying, we can help you increase the use of your public infrastructure. We can help you increase efficiency on your public infrastructure so that you don't have to go and build new parking lots. Instead, we can get people to ride the bus more, ride the train more, and decrease your infrastructure costs over time. Thank you. I'd like to open up to any questions.
Nice presentation. One question, is your technology prone to weather conditions, heavy snow, fog, conditions like that?
The short answer is yes. Lasers always have issues with precipitation. We've actually been, the VT Knowledge Works staff set us up with Michael at R-Golf, and he's a very experienced surveyor, so we have years of experience working with laser technology. And in his startup that he's working on now, they're doing millimeter level precision of mapping golf greens. And he said that he has a hunch that even variations in humidity can actually affect at the millimeter scan the kind of results that you're getting. For us, because we're using a laser that is rated to go about half a mile, and we're only shooting, because of our height restriction, we can only shoot like 200 meters or less than that. We can overcome a lot of those issues by basically just being more powerful than we need to be. But there will still be times where there's a really heavy fog. That's pretty much the number one thing that can hamper laser technology, where it just won't work. And the way we counteract that is by using our predictive analytics platform. So we can say, even though we don't have great data right now, we know that Tuesdays at 10 o'clock with these weather conditions, there's this level of parking. And we can notify users that the fog is preventing us from giving you really accurate data. We still think they'll be parking in this lot at this time, or there won't be parking in this lot at this time.
Thank you for the presentation. If you could help me understand, what's your real competitive advantage with in terms of the other competition from ParkMe, Parkways, Haystack? I mean, there are so many different apps, and I'm still having difficulty understanding why is your app better than the hundreds that are out there.
There are pretty much three approaches. In parking decks, a lot of times you see this at BWI Airport, they have like basically a little laser that they put over each spot, and it works similar to a garage door. If you've ever seen a garage door where if you break that laser line, the door won't close on you to prevent doors from closing on pets and things like that. So that's the technology that they use. Streetline, which operates Parker, and SF Park, they use that hockey puck style sensor that I was talking about before, and they work really well. Both of these things work really well. The issue is they're extremely expensive. So per spot cost is upwards of $300, versus us, we're much less expensive. And there are a lot of other apps that use crowdsourcing for that data, but crowdsourced data is not that accurate, and because of that accuracy issue, you don't know if you're actually going to find a parking spot when you get there or not.
And just one question, possibly it might not have an impact on you at all, but there are cities like Boston and others who are banning apps, parking apps, and it's because of the trading of the parking space. But I'm just wondering
No, absolutely.
if you
I've
have...
heard about that. San Francisco actually just banned, there was this parking app, I forgot the name, but basically you could sell publicly like free parking spots. So people from Oakland with these really crappy cars would drive to San Francisco and sit in parking spots and wait for someone to purchase the spot on the app. When the person who was buying the spot pulled up, they would pull out. And that's just an inefficient use of infrastructure, right? That's a bad thing because you're bringing in more people to fill up parking spots that should be free. We're targeting a market where it's already, it's outside of cities essentially at these park and ride metro stops. And we're just showing what's actually happening. We're not charging or incentivizing people to sit in parking spots all day.
All right, thank you.
So re-explain the business model to me, because
Yeah.
the only thing you talked about was selling laser pointers, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I assume there's a subscription model on the
Absolutely,
back of that. So.
yeah. So we would charge basically the same thing every year because it's so cheap compared to our competitors. So it would be about $10 per spot per year, and we would sell it at the institution level. So like we would sell it to Virginia Tech, or we would sell it to New Jersey Transit or the Metro Authority, and with the goal of increasing their ridership on their public transportation systems. And that's what we promised them.
Will you have to specify the laser equipment, or will you, I mean, there are obviously laser equipment out there on the market now in the survey world. I mean, is that part of it, or is it pretty much just the app? Here are the laser systems that work with our system.
We do have to build a custom laser system. The biggest expense actually isn't the laser, it's the 3-axis motor control head with the stepper motors. That's the most expensive. The laser themselves are relatively cheap, so, okay. But we do have to design and build that ourselves, which is difficult, and we are currently recruiting to get a hardware specialist on our team, because that's something we really need.
Do you feel that the $10 a year will actually cover the cost of maintaining the equipment and ensuring the data storage and the speed of data transfer and all of those things that you're going to have to deal with?
We do, because our upfront cost, basically $10 will be less than our upfront cost, so every year after that is just profit or just goes into maintenance. And I'm sure we'll have to, these things aren't going to last forever, so we're going to have regular replacement cycles.
In terms of your market entry, you note that in 4 years or so, you hope to be in 4,000 different parking
It wasn't parking lots, it's actually parking spaces.
spaces. Okay. I was wondering how you could break that down, or whether you can break that down in terms of what your desired path to success there would be: universities versus airports versus...
Absolutely. We don't have those. Paul was always the guy who memorized those numbers, but I can give you our thought on how we got those numbers. So we tried to come up with an average number of parking spots per airport. So for that, we took the Indianapolis airport, because it's kind of an average size. For park and rides, we found a median number of parking spots at a park and ride, and for universities, we did the same. And I believe the numbers are, it's about 17 airports, north of 30 universities, and more than 100 park and rides.
Also, just in terms of the technology, I wanted to be clear. Does this work in parking structures, or do you have to be up high so that limits you to looking down at surface lots?
We are surface lots exclusively, and that's why we want to partner to fill that hole, because most parking infrastructure is a combination of surface lots, mostly surface lots, and a small amount of parking decks. So we want to be able to partner to solve that parking deck issue.
So Virginia Tech has already bought into this and is going to fund you to install this like in the Whittemore parking lot?
They have not, but we do have permission, if we bootstrap it ourselves, to be able to get access to different parts of the university so we can test.
Okay, but ultimately you would sell this to Virginia Tech?
Yes.
And, okay, so everyone entering into the lot would need to have your app installed?
We can present the data in many different ways, and I think this is the really cool part. BWI and a lot of other places, they use dynamic digital signage to point you to your available parking spots, so you can do it that way. You can do it through a mobile app, but I think really the best way to do this is through an open API that allows Google Now and Apple Siri to plug into that. A lot of times I'll be driving and I know where I'm going. I don't even need to open an app, but I'll get a notification on my phone, especially when I go from Blacksburg to my parents' house in Northern Virginia. I'll be driving, I don't have directions open, but I'll get a notification that says there's an accident right now. You need to reroute. So we want to be able to do the same thing for parking, for when you get up in the morning, before you even leave, it'll give you a notification. You should drive, you should take the bus, or it's really nice out, maybe you should consider walking or biking.
Okay. All right, just some of the questions from the audience. won't the system, when popular, keep sending everyone to the same space, making everyone choose the same space?
What was that?
It says, with the system is popular, when folks are coming in the morning and there's lots of cars coming in, won't it try to direct everybody to the same space?
This is actually a really interesting big data problem. If you look at the way Google handles traffic jams, they won't send even if there's an alternate route, that's like a smaller road along the side of the interstate, they won't take everyone and tell them, go down here, because they know that it's just going to cause a huge traffic pileup on that smaller road. So what they think about it intelligently, and what's the best way to get everyone from point A, where they are, to where everyone wants to be. So you don't think about it at the individual level, you can actually extrapolate it out to the macro level.
Okay. Okay. Okay, I guess it's similar. If Vestigo becomes popular, won't the very success cannibalize the available spots? More users equals less available spots. But I think you...
Yeah, our approach, even though we're talking about helping people find parking, what we really do is helping people take the bus, because we can integrate those public transportation APIs, like Blacksburg Transit has an available schedule online that we can pull from. We can also pull ridership numbers. They post that. They have an API where they actually know how many people are on the bus. So we can tell you if the bus is full, you should drive, or if the bus isn't full, you should hop on the bus.
Okay, and why did you choose laser rangefinders rather than a camera-based system with computer vision software?
We looked at computer vision. One of the issues is it doesn't work great at night. So how you counteract that is by using infrared cameras. And we were thinking about doing infrared cameras and using this infrared reflective paint. This is like the first iteration we went through, and put the infrared reflective paint under every single spot. The issue was the paint didn't really work as well as we thought it would be. We just cold called this company to ask them for the special paint mix that they have, and we tried it for weeks and we couldn't get it to work. So we thought laser rangefinder is the best way to get really accurate data, regardless of what time of day it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.